If you were to ask me recently about the current state of modern racing games, three choice phrases would spring to mind, at least for me. Humble beginnings, natural progression, and ambitious overgrowth. One particular franchise that I feel this observation applies hand in hand to is none other than Need for Speed. Starting life as a more relaxed, realism-driven sports car simulation, it progressed to being an arcade-focused European cop-chasing funfest, to successfully capitalizing on the underground street racing scene, to pretending to be Forza Motorsport, to pretending to be Burnout, to pretending to be Fast and Furious. Are you seeing a pattern here? Branching off into all these different identities in a sporadic attempt to regain a foothold in the racing market that they haven't held for decades now shows how misguided the franchise is becoming, at least for me. So it's times like these that I like to look back to what put Need for Speed on the map in the first place. Road and Track presents The Need for Speed, developed by Pioneer Productions, a division of Electronic Arts Canada. Just remember people, humble beginnings, and released on the Panasonic 3DO system in 1994. It aimed to capture the authentic experience of driving an exotic sports car through fully texture-mapped environments complemented with realistic physics and an overall tone of pure early 90s fun and radicalness. The game boasts 8 fully 3D rendered sports cars with accurate individual physics models making whichever car you pick telling to your experience behind the wheel. This is all nicely detailed in the info section for each car that can be accessed by clicking on the car you've selected from the main menu. Engine specs, general info, it's all here, all provided by Road and Track magazine.
Quantities of torque can be a problem in cornering where a too early application of the throttle can snap the tail end around quicker than you'd like.
Something else that was special for the time were the included music videos made to show off both the cars themselves and the new full motion video capabilities brought on by the new CD-ROM technology, and it's awesome. But enough of that for now. There is an actual game here that we need to get to, let's not forget that. This original 3DO release contains 3 point-to-point tracks, City, Coastal, and Alpine. Each of these tracks are divided up into 3 stages each and can take around 5 to 6 minutes to get through each one depending on how fast you're going, and will absolutely put your driving skills to the test if you're going for a fast time. Selecting the car keys or pressing the start button on the main menu will drop you into the game on the track with the car you selected, and it's not immediately all that clear how you actually get going. You actually have to shift into gear to begin the race instead of a countdown system like many other games. This level of realism continues into the cockpit view, which was an incredibly unique feature for the time, and it's one of my favorite things about the game. The muffled engine sounds combined with the wind rushing past outside, and even realistic gear shifting sounds and graphics make your driving experience truly unique from car to car. And crashing your car is just as impressive. Although there's actually no damage model present, the sounds of crunching and scraping sheet metal do a good job of conveying the severity of the impact, and watching the cars fly all over the place never gets old. What does get old though is this car live system that's in place. No matter what game mode you're playing, you'll start with 3 of these lives. If you crash too heavily, you'll lose one, and if you lose all of them, you'll be kicked back to the main menu, so that gets annoying. Although if you drive well without crashing for long enough, you can sometimes earn bonus cars as well. However, that's not to say the Need for Speed isn't just a glorified tech demo. You can also race in a head-to-head mode against this smug jock-looking guy who the game calls the Daredevil.
You suck like a Hoover with a full bag, man. I mean, if you want to beat me, you're gonna have to come up with something better than that driver's ed flunk-out style you got, you dig?
Yeah, this personified stereotype shows up whether you win or lose a race against him, either to smack-talk you or give you a backhanded compliment if you somehow manage to beat him.
Well, I bet you're feeling pretty smug, huh? Beat the best time, boost your already inflated ego. Why don't you go and get a new job, huh? Why don't you drive a fire truck? Why don't you drive an ambulance? You know, do something for society, huh? Send in the next speed freak.
I say somehow because the opponent AI that this game wants you to believe is this Daredevil character is absolutely ruthless, unforgiving, and does whatever it can to make sure you lose.
I guess these machines are just a little out of your league, eh, pal?
But if you're like me and most other sane people that don't enjoy people being snarky dickheads in your video games, no matter how cheesy, you can turn them off in the main menu, and relish in blissful silence. But that won't make winning against him any easier. You've probably noticed by now that there's quite a hefty amount of traffic on the roads. This makes preventing a crash all that much harder, and it isn't made any easier by the police involvement. Yes, there are cops around waiting on the sides of the roads, or sometimes driving the other way, ready to ping you if you're going too fast, which is going to be probably all the time. But anyway, it may seem like common sense, you'll want to make sure you're carrying a good amount of speed when you pass a cop in this game. If they get in front of you at any point, you'll automatically be slowed down to be issued a ticket. And if you get stopped twice in one race, you'll automatically be arrested and shown this really, well, just watch.
Well, I do believe I got me my first UFO capture. You better start turning green real fast, Gizmo, or the National Enquirer ain't gonna buy my story.
One more thing that I do want to quickly point out about the tracks is that I absolutely love how the location continuity between each stage is handled from track to track. For example, in Alpine, you start going through the dense country roads and valleys at the bottom of a mountain through stage 1, before working your way up the windy roads and eventually ending up at the snow-covered mountaintop by the time you get to stage 3. Or on Coastal, where you start on, go figure, a coastline, making your way up to the beach before passing it entirely onto the windy cliffside roads that'll culminate in a dash across the peninsula to Lighthouse Point, ending just around the corner where, Planet of the Apes? Anyway, as far as this 3DO version goes, that's about all there is to say. The Need for Speed received almost unanimous positivity at the time from the gaming press for its realism and innovation in the racing genre, and it can still be enjoyed a whole lot today thanks to absolutely excellent emulators like 3DO Play, which is what I've been using for this review. I'd honestly recommend this over the actual hardware due to the fact that original 3DO consoles are ridiculously expensive to buy second-hand at the moment, and playing through 3DO Play gives you access to a few options that can make your experience a whole lot better. For example, in all the footage that I've been showing you so far that's emulating the game's performance on an actual 3DO, you've probably noticed that the game doesn't exactly run at a particularly good or consistent frame rate. Well now, thanks to 3DO Play, you can speed up the CPU to run the game at a far more acceptable and consistent 30 frames per second. And as you've also probably noticed, you also have the option to disable the pixel interpolation feature that the 3DO would normally put its graphics through, resulting in a much sharper looking experience. Now, while the abundance of modern accessibility is absolutely great for those wanting to jump into the 3DO version of the Need for Speed in one way or another, at the time in 1994, seeing as the game only released on this Panasonic 3DO at first, a very technically capable but ultimately overpriced niche console, it didn't get the worldwide recognition that EA Canada were looking for. Not willing to leave the Need for Speed in the dust quite yet, EA Canada looked to other platforms to breathe new life into the soon-to-be franchise. What new platforms am I talking about? Well, that'll have to wait until next time. Road & Track Presents The Need for Speed was a game that was far ahead of its time compared to its competition like Test Drive 3 and even to some extent NASCAR Racing by Papyrus, which also came out in 1994. But where The Need for Speed really shone was the believability. No longer were cars and video games just flat textureless polygonal models with squares for wheels. And while the Test Drive series as a whole first coined the concept of having a selection of licensed exotic sports cars all in one game, and NASCAR Racing by Papyrus made leaps and bounds when it came to what could be done in terms of simulation handling on home PCs, but in my opinion the Need for Speed was the one that built off of this momentum, utilizing all the tech it had available at the time, and created a home driving experience that was truly one for the ages. But one that ultimately I wish would get a lot more recognition nowadays because it definitely deserves it. And it's because of that that I absolutely recommend this to any of you watching right now if you're interested at all in early racing games, or perhaps when Need for Speed first got started. You will not regret it.